Hi everybody, it's Cindy the Scrapologist. Welcome to another junk journal tutorial. I'm required to say that by YouTube so my video can be found. um, as you know, if you follow me, that I have come across a gold mine of wallpaper books that I am slowly obtaining, purchasing, cutting apart, etc. And I've had over 100 people comment and purchase some packs, etc. But there have been a lot of questions too. Okay, I love the paper. Now, what do I do with it? So I just wanted to give you at least one idea. Well, maybe a couple. So most of the wallpaper so far that I've been able to make available, isn't this gorgeous? Um, it's big. I'm trying to give you as full of a sheet as I can, and I'm shipping it out in rolled tubes, so it's not going to be creased. So you'll have full sheets, and they're anywhere from 14 to 18 inches long. Now, this particular one is so beautiful. I'm so in love with it that I'm actually going to maybe frame this and hang it in my studio. I love it. Or maybe the hallway on the way to my studio. And there's quite a few that I'm just in love with that I'm probably going to use it as artwork. But that aside, because the sheets are so big, these are perfect for covering mini album or junk journal covers. So this is an example of one that I made to show you. This is the outside, and then this is the inside. Sorry for the glare. And the beauty of wallpaper, why I love it so much, first of all, your cover is going to be one of a kind because it's not as if there are multiples of this wallpaper out there. It's scarce, and each book that I get only usually has one of each. So anyway, it's going to be beautiful and unique, but also you don't have to worry in your creases both inside and on the outside. You don't have to worry about that dreaded cracking that often occurs when you want to wrap paper around, just regular scrapbook paper around. Quite often it feathers and tears. This is a really active part of the book, and the paper gets a lot of wear and tear. So I just love wallpaper for my covers. I'm going to show you quickly how to do one. I use it both on the outside and on the inside. So I have two scraps here, and I think this beautiful piece is going to be my outside, and it had a coordinating piece that I'll use for my inside. And some of the kits are going to have, some of the packs are going to have some of the staple holes there. I'm just leaving it there, and you can cut it off. You might want to use those for something, so I just left it. So I have a couple of pieces of scrap chipboard that I cut down, and I have my front and back cover, and I have my spine. And this just happens to be a perfect size for this. I want to avoid those holes, so just cut your wallpaper down so that you have an inch. Oh, by the way, the one thing I didn't mention too is look at how beautifully it wraps around. This looks so polished, and if you get your corners right, it just wraps around the edges so beautifully. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to mark, or I'm just going to cut. Let's see. I'm going to try to leave about an inch. Just guesstimating. Doesn't have to be exact.
So while I was cutting, I must have pressed the mute button on my microphone. And so I'm just going to do a voiceover for the rest of this and try to remember what I said. I know here I was complaining that I still have not purchased a new blade for my rotary cutter. I complain about that every video, so it really is time for me to buy one. And there, so there, I've cut so that there's a 1-inch border on all sides. And now you just need to put your chipboard on the wallpaper. You can use glue if you want. And there's a scrap piece. Keep the scrap piece for embellishments. And if you want to use glue, that's fine, but just keep in mind that glue warps paper and especially chipboard. So if you use glue, you're going to want to take a couple of heavy books or bricks or something and set them on top of your chipboard immediately after you glue them so that they stay nice and flat. So you certainly can use glue. I happen to have a lot of double-sided tape on hand, so that's what I'm going to use to affix the wallpaper to the chipboard. Make sure that you have good coverage so that you don't get any bubbling, especially on your front cover. So I like to do around all of the edges, and then I'll go in and put several strips on the middle section to make sure that the wallpaper, like I said, doesn't have any bubbles. So now I've got good tape coverage. I'm just going to place it back on my sheet of wallpaper, making sure that I leave a nice 1-inch border on all sides. And I like to burnish it down just to make sure that I have really good adhesion there. Adhesion? Yeah, that might be a word, adhesion. And then I'm going to do the spine piece. And for the spine piece, I like to just do end-to-end full coverage on the spine piece. It's just better. That's a high stress area on a book. Burnish it down. And then I'm going to put it next to the cover, leaving about a 1/4 of an inch gap. Just placing it down here, and I'm just eyeballing it. You can certainly draw lines if you like it to be. You want to make sure it's perfect if you don't eyeball it very well, so that you're putting all of your things on here nice and even. So just make sure your bottom and your top edge are lined up really well. And then you just need to do the same with your front cover. And I'm just burnishing it down again just to make sure that the whole thing is on there really nicely. And now it's time to fold over the edges, because that's the nice thing about this, is this makes such a beautiful finished look because you get the wallpaper over the edges of the book and it makes it look really polished. Okay, and now I'm just showing, if you take a piece of chipboard, that will show you how far away from the edge, from the corner, you need to miter. And you can just put a piece of chipboard there, the same thickness as your cover, and cut the edge. I happen to have this perfect trim ruler that I bought years ago, I think back in like 2012 or so, and it gives you all the measurements. I love this thing for mitering corners, and I highly recommend it as a tool if you make a lot of your own book covers with chipboard. It shows you, depending on the thickness of your chipboard, where exactly you want to place this, and then you can just go ahead and miter your corners. And if you're wondering why my mic sounds different again, I realized that I didn't have it turned on. It was just the camera picking up my voice. So, oh my word, for those of you who don't make videos, it's not easy. It takes hours, and especially when you're a dumb blonde like me, and you're tired and you just keep making stupid mistakes. Oh my word. So anyway, thank you for your patience with this video. Hopefully you can still follow along. So I have all four corners mitered here. And now it's time to fold those up. So first we need to put some tape down. You can either put it right on the chipboard or you can put it on the wallpaper, whatever you prefer to do. If you're going to put it on the wallpaper, do that before you miter so that you have really good coverage. So make sure you have good end-to-end coverage here. You don't leave any gaps. And once that's done, then I like to do the long ends first, and I like to fold and train the paper like this using my desk as putting as pressure so that it's got a really nice crease and I can make sure it's folded right up against the chipboard. So I like to do the folds first, as I said, just to train the paper. And then I'm going to go ahead and remove the tape and fold the long edges up first. And I like to use the same technique, pressing down against my desk and then folding it over. And that just makes sure, like I said, that you get nice coverage on the edge. And then burnish it once you've done that. And I like to do the edge there with my burnishing tool and then do across the top. So then I'll do the same for the other side. And now it's time to do the smaller edges, the shorter edges. But first you want to worry about that little teeny corner piece that I'm pointing to here. You don't want that sticking out. You want a really nice edge there. You want a really nice neat corner. So just kind of fold that in a little bit, and I like to use the pointy end of my burnishing tool so that I just kind of work that corner to get it real nice and super neat. This is probably the most difficult part that takes a little bit of practice when you're covering your own chipboard, but after a while it becomes really easy, especially if you do it this way. And keep those little triangles because I'm going to show you a trick that you can do if you didn't fold it quite correctly. And even if you cut and fold as perfectly as you can, sometimes you get that little gap there and you might not want that to show. So that's where these handy little triangles that we cut when we were mitering come into play, because you can, reaching for my glue here, you can just glue these on the corner and it covers that little faulty area right up, and nobody is ever even going to know that you made a boo-boo. Just neatens it right up. Put it right on there. Isn't that just a cool little handy dandy trick? And see how nice and neat it is now? You can use this for making mini albums, junk journal covers. It works every time. Okay, so now I'm just going to do the other side. Folding in those little pointy parts. And then folding it over. And that one is good to go. And I like to just burnish the corners there just to make sure everything's nice and snug and neat. Sometimes you can just neaten it up a little bit. And there I have one more that I didn't cut quite right. So I'm just going to fix that up, fix up that corner. And there we go. We're done with the outside cover. So now what we want to do is measure and make sure that you leave about 1/4 of an inch on either side. So you don't want full coverage with your inside paper because it looks really nice when you have just a little bit of the other paper showing. It gives it some very nice contrast. So I'm just going to cut this down. And what I'm mentioning here is that on some of the packs, because I had to cut these out with either a saw or a box cutter, they're not always perfectly straight. So just check your edges on your cutting mat to make sure that you've kind of squared things up before you go ahead and make your cuts. So here I'm just applying my double-sided tape and I'm trying to get really good coverage. Again, use glue if that's what you prefer, but I do like my double-sided tape. Just going to burnish it up and then stick it on the inside. And I'm just going to place it down and just make sure that I have that nice 1/4 inch gap on all 4 sides. I got a little tape that came out the edge there that I don't want to show. And I'm just making sure that all of the different sides, and I have the same amount on each side, that's nice and even. More tape in the way. And there we have it. Burnish it just to make sure I have good, it's sticking down really well. And then it's covered at that point. So now isn't that pretty, the front and the back? And so now just lightly bend to find where your fold is and burnish in there too to get a nice crease in there. And this is the other nice thing about wallpaper is that with regular paper, this is often a place where people go wrong. They press down too hard and split the paper, and then it's just you have to cover that whole area. Your spine gets too thick. So wallpaper is beautiful in that regard too, as long as you don't press too hard. But isn't this just so pretty? I love the way this turned out. And with wallpaper you can decorate the cover. You could have put a ribbon underneath that sheet on the inside, and look at how pretty the edges are. And you can't even tell that I messed up the corners. So that's just an example of 2 really pretty scrapbook albums, mini albums, or junk journal covers that you can make using wallpaper. I hope you enjoy this technique. I have lots of paper packs. I'm going Thursday actually with a U-Haul to pick up more. So keep an eye at thescrapologist.com if you want to grab some of these, and enjoy. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.